Hello and welcome to Two Therapists and a Microphone. I am Dr. Harrison Davis.
And I'm Dr. Aisha Dickerson.
You're watching a show about mental health, social issues, relationship issues, anything that affects you, and you have myself and Dr. Aisha to help you out.
Yeah, we are two licensed psychotherapists with decades of clinical experience, and we want to hear from you. So, I would tell you exactly how long I've been a psychotherapist, but then you might start to figure out my age. And so I want to keep that a secret, but I will say it's been longer than 10 years. I've had quite a few clients, and my style is I like to say reality focused. I try to be nice. I let people come to their own conclusions, but also I'm really good about calling people out on their BS. What about you, Harrison? Tell us about your therapy style.
Well, thanks for that. I think we have a lot in common with that too, but I have been practicing for 24 years. That's
Woo!
almost a quarter of a century.
A lot
Uh,
longer than me.
yes, I think that's longer than your age, as a matter of fact.
Hey, I'll take it. I'll take it.
But over the 25 years, I just like help people to figure some things out, how to manage their emotions, figure out some positive solutions. I use a person-centered approach. I like reality therapy and a little cognitive behavior therapy as well.
All right.
And so, Aisha, what type of clients do you usually see? Describe some of your clients that you see.
I have a few that I would consider the worried well. People like myself, like we kind of get stuck sometimes. We want to move forward, but more than that, I work with people who are family members of people who are dealing with addictions,
Yeah.
who have other long-term illnesses, lifelong illnesses like HIV, like addiction, and I work a lot with teenagers and young adults to kind of get past that. Let's say relying on your parents and everybody else, teach them some independent living skills.
Gotcha. Yeah, you like those teenagers. I do not work with kids. You got to be 18 or above if you want to sit on my couch. But right now, I had to scale back my practice a little bit because I got another full-time job. But my clients are about 80% black adults, about 70% males, 40 and up. And a lot of them are just trying to figure out how to navigate their jobs, their families, their careers, and dealing with some trauma from their past, and trying not to make some mistakes. So I tend to do a lot of personal growth counseling, is what some people call it. So those are the individuals who don't always have a hardcore pathology or diagnosis, but they're just regular folks trying to figure some things out, so they can stop making mistakes with that. But for you guys, we want to hear from you. You know, we want you to voice your concerns, your issues, so you can receive some expert guidance from myself and Dr. Aisha.
Yeah, so like instead of going to your friends or your relatives, or as I tell my kids, talking to your little friends, you can come on here and talk to us. You can talk to some of the other experts that we bring on. Usually we'll have a theme or subject that we're talking about, but if you have any questions about therapy or the therapeutic subjects that we're talking about for the day, please feel free to put them in the chat and we'll answer your
Absolutely.
questions as best as possible. And if we feel like you need a little bit more than what we're able to provide in 30 minutes, we will be happy to refer you to another therapist in your area.
Absolutely. So before we go any further, I keep seeing this shit of what's the differences between our types of
Okay.
therapies. So
Oh, we're
my
about to go
type,
into counselor educator mode. You about
I
to
know that's what I was thinking. So, but I want to make sure they understand. So I do what's called person-centered, where I do a lot of listening to the clients and provide a lot of empathy for them to understand themselves, so they can get some more insight into their situation, their role in the situation, and the role of other people in the situation. But I also transition over into a reality therapy mode where we're trying to resolve the situation or resolve how they are responding to the situation. So that tends to be the style that I have.
And so for me, one style or one theory that I ascribe to is called Adlerian. So I focus a lot on what are your first memories. Tell me about your family. Tell me about your birth order, and let's see how that might factor in a little bit into what you're
Yep.
doing today. But I want to build on the strengths that you already have. And then, like Harrison, I mean, it's one of the ways where we really connect is that we both do reality therapy, where we're asking like, what do you want? What are you doing?
What are you
To
trying
get
to accomplish?
right.
And
And
how
then
can you get there?
right. And whatever you've been doing, how is that working for you? If you say you want your kids back, but your kids aren't coming to you because you keep using drugs, how is that working for you? Well, it's not. And so then we
Yeah.
make a plan for you to get what you want.
Absolutely. Or if you want to have a healthy relationship, then perhaps we need to stop practicing in unhealthy behaviors within those relationships. Or we need to find out how you can truly operate within a healthy relationship. So, those are just some examples of our styles, as I wanted to make sure that you guys understood us and our styles, because they're going to come through on the show, and I think you're going to get a little bit of it. Have y'all seen an increase with mental health issues due to COVID? We're about to talk about that right
Girl.
now. Thank you. So today's topic is 2 years of the pandemic, police brutality, awareness, and racial divisiveness. How are you coping with all of that? Yeah, I said that, DAT, because it has been 2 years. I never thought it was going to take this long. I remember March of 2020 when everything shut down and I got that text in the middle of a class that I was teaching, like all the other students, that told us to evacuate immediately and not to come back to campus until 2 weeks. And
Yeah, we
so,
thought it was going to last 2 weeks, and now
yeah,
we're like 2 years in.
March would be 2 years. But how are you coping with it, Aisha?
Well, I'll say in the beginning it was like real cool, right? I was like, this is dope. My kids are home. I don't have to get up early in the morning to get them there. I mean, I know a lot of people didn't want their kids there, but mine are a little older, so they could kind of fend for themselves. By the time I woke up, they had made their own food. We were working out every day, spending time together. We're having on a nice top and whatever sweatpants or shorts I wanted to have on for the day. And then, like 2 years later, I got that pandemic weight that I didn't get in the beginning. And I was working out so much and then I got lazy. And I have subscribed to each and every streaming service I could. It's like,
Yeah,
okay, I've reached the end of Netflix. Now I've reached the end of Amazon. I reached the end of Hulu. And thank God Disney Plus came through, but I reached the end of that too. And
yeah, yeah.
ordered Apple Plus.
And HBO, yeah. And as a extrovert, staying in the house a lot wasn't matching well with my personality.
Hmm.
But we dealt with it and keeping my 11-year-old calm. And I kept promising her every 2 or 3 months, it's going to be over in a few months. And here we are,
Right.
almost 2 years later. I must admit, it is beginning to take a toll on me, as I'm still hearing on news some of the same issues. The racial divisiveness, violence is at a all-time high in many cities. We live in Atlanta, the Atlanta area, and like many other places, things have changed. And then the grocery stores with some shortages. But
Right.
the one thing that's really getting on my nerves right now, a lot of the restaurants, I like to eat out a lot. They
Me too.
have they have low staff, and the grocery stores and going into the mall to buy something for my daughter, you cannot find someone to ring you up, and I've been very sympathetic, to what they're going through, but I am ready for things to get back to normal.
Yes, me too. I mean, as much as groceries cost, it's like
Uh,
I'm saving money by eating out anyway. Let me tell you, Harrison, I went to the grocery store last week and I don't buy a ton of groceries. I mean, I don't think I do. I only had one cart and my total was $426. I was right going through like, what did I buy? There's no ribs, I wasn't shopping like I was on supermarket sweep trying to get all the expensive stuff. I pulled out my coupon, scanned my little discount
wow.
card. Yeah, 420. I didn't have my favorite chips, so I'm trying a new brand of chips this week. There was just not a whole lot of anything that I wanted. So you know what? That's going to positively reinforce my behavior with going out to eat because if I'm going to spend that much money, I might as well let somebody else cook it.
That's a lot of money. I don't do a lot of grocery shopping in the house, but that's a lot. But I am hearing not as much anymore about my clients going through COVID. What's happening right now? I'm getting a lot of callbacks. from people who quit counseling a
Yeah.
year or 2 years ago. They were just scared to come out. They weren't cool with the Zoom thing, and now they're all coming back, and those issues are still there. And then some people, they have heightened emotions. They're overreacting to a lot of things. So those are some of the things that I'm beginning to see that are connected with COVID, and people are a little bit irritable
Yeah.
these days
Myself
compared.
included sometimes. Yeah.
I haven't noticed. People get on the airplane fighting these
Yeah.
days. I'm not quite sure what they're fighting about. But that's the topic for today that Aisha and I want to talk about: the pandemic, racial violence, divisiveness. The price of food, gas is going up. Our whole lifestyle changed, and we have yet to go back to normal. Some of us are close to normal, but we haven't gotten back to that point.
Yeah, I remember in the beginning it was the new normal, and how do we adjust to our new normal? And even we took a break from two therapists and a microphone for over a year, but the last episode that we did had to do with racial violence and how do we
Yep.
talk about this with our children.
2 years
And
ago. Yep.
yeah, was it 2 years ago? See, and I've
Yep.
lost track of time
Two
now.
2 years in April is when we recorded that episodes. But we're glad to be back. We want to talk about. We want to hear from you guys about how you're coping with it. And so the last show, I just want to finish up on a client that I talked about because it is related to COVID.
Yeah, and I
He.
want to know. I was interested, and then we ran out of time. So please, Harrison,
We
tell
did.
us
We
what
ran.
happened.
I didn't mean to go so long, but I'm a little bit long-winded. But I keep it short this time. So that client is a middle 40-ish black male, married, kids, got a brand new job about a year ago. High salary. At a director level, project manager, and one of the employees who happens to be, we talked about Karen's last time, was giving him some grief, not following all of his instructions, making comments, and he was convinced that she's on a personal campaign to sabotage him, to make him look bad. Now, how COVID comes into this is that he was happy to have the job. He was already a little bit antsy about things, but he didn't know how to respond. He didn't know what to do. He didn't want to be labeled the angry black male, but he wanted to stand in his new role. He wanted to stand in his new position where now he has a team. And so he didn't know how to respond, when the Karen refused to follow some of his directives. And so I mentioned that he's a non-confrontational type of guy. He thought because of his degrees and his expertise and what he does that he was never going to have to deal with something like that. So we had to talk about it. It got so bad for him. He was feeling bad leaving work. He began having panic attacks, and he was beginning to have some suicidal thoughts
Oh no.
because he didn't know how to handle it. He didn't want to mess up his new job. He didn't want to take his problems home to his family, but he really thought he could be civil with the situation. So he tried to talk to her, and she sort of turned things around, still didn't listen to him, but nevertheless, he's the one in charge, and he didn't know how to put her in her place. How would you help that guy, Aisha?
Well, first of all, we established that he is completely different from me when it comes to confronting those issues. What I would do first is what we refer to as self-disclosure, where I try to tell him, I told my story last week about the issue I was having with
Yep.
a trio of Karens, which I could give you a little more information about that because we're going to have a little meeting to discuss a little bit further.
I bet
So
you will.
oh yeah, it's gonna be nice. We're gonna have some understanding, or at least I would have gotten out everything I need to get out. But I would encourage, and as a supervisor, I would just use a lot of encouragement to tell your client, let's try the write up, or be
Yep.
prepared to
Yep.
handle whatever happens afterwards. She's not afraid of you. You got to lose that fear.
Yep.
You empower people to I'll say bully you, like how a
Yes.
bully is
Yes.
empowered when you let them do
To
things to
take
you in
his power
positive
away.
right. It
Yep.
reinforces her behavior. Or you're a little more scared. Let me knock you down a little bit more. Come a little harder, knock you down a little bit more. So you gotta lift them up.
Well, believe it or not, there are some black folks out there who've been in their 40s working in professional areas. They've never had to deal with that. And he
That's
was
a blessing.
one, and so he wanted to write her up for insubordination.
Mm,
And when he went to his direct report, his boss, and we're talking C-suite, we're
right.
talking VPs of the company, he was told that they don't want to. She's a longtime team player. She's good, and they don't want to make her upset. So he was encouraged not to write her up for insubordination. To
Mm,
add to the complication, he discovered whose side they're on.
right.
Yeah,
There you
yeah.
go.
So yeah, he was in a tough spot. Absolutely. So, and he tried to talk to his boss about it. Privilege. Yes, yeah. She had a lot of
That's really
privilege.
what it is. Okay.
You know, I don't have to tell you more about her than to use the term Karen. You know, but making a lot of noise, trying to make him look bad. So we tried to go the professional route. You know, we did some meditation also, some self-talk, you know, to get him pumped up, you know, to go in and confront this situation. But it didn't work. It did not yield the results that he wanted.
Well, and it sounds like unfortunately he thought he had some privilege at some educational privilege because he
Yes,
had the
yes.
training and all of that. And it's like they reminded you, oh, you're a black man in America,
It
and it
doesn't
sounds.
matter you have an MBA from a semi-Ivy League university.
Hmm.
You know, it doesn't matter at that point. So I had to ask him, you know, as we continue. This is about 4 or 5 sessions into it, trying some new strategies. You know, I was like, well, we tried this, we tried that, it didn't work out. It didn't yield the results that you wanted. What do you want to do? What do you really want to do? So, you know, he used some of his language. You know, how he wanted to get, it was essentially get back at her to not let her get under his skin and humiliate him in front of his team. So I just explained, you know, I've been around a long time. I've dealt with a number of situations and I've learned a lot from my clients. I asked him, do you want to play the game? Do you want to play that corporate game? Do you want to play that game that we don't like, but sometimes we're forced to play?
Hmm.
He looked at me and very eagerly said, yes.
I'll go to fall in place. I'll play the game.
So what we came up with was a strategy to combat or battle her personal campaign against him. He had to create a campaign against her
Okay.
in
Okay.
this
How do you do
corporate.
that? Teach me the game.
So the game is to go back, and let's just say her name is Karen, and start making comments. You know, is Karen okay? Is Karen always like that? Karen, you seem a little bit uptight today. Is everything okay at home? To over exaggerate what it was. Not only do that, but to go to the boss. Have you guys ever been concerned about Karen
Oh, I like that.
and her demeanor? You know, and I didn't know if she had been drinking or what, but it just really set me back. And so I just wanted to know, was this normal behavior? Then he went to the other colleagues within the group. You know, John, what do you think about Karen's behavior? I don't see anything wrong because they were running to her rescue.
Hmm.
And then I had to coach him to ask John. So John, can you tell me what are you telling yourself when she's talking to you like a child with a condescending
Plant that
tone?
seed. She's doing it to you too.
Yeah, how can you tell me how do you convince yourself that that's okay? John didn't like it. He tried to justify it. He said, because I don't know if I can do that, but I see that you do it all the time. Then he went over to Lori, Becky, and Susie and talking with them in a private conversation. Same thing. Are you guys worried about Karen's behavior? No, no, no. Well, why are you guys afraid of her? What? We're not afraid of Karen. Oh, I'm sorry. It's just when I saw her yell at you, you didn't say anything back, and so I was assuming that you guys were afraid of her. But my mistake. I misunderstood the situation, It's just when I see things like that, it makes me believe that someone's being bullied. I didn't know if I should come to your rescue. So he planted these strategic seeds within the group to exercise his power and to become much more confident. So that when she became upset with him and slammed her office door and screamed in her
Oh,
office,
you got to let some people look bad by themselves.
and
That's
that's
just went
that's
right in
that's
there.
when he also went to report that to HR because he was concerned with the rash of violence that's been taking place throughout our country, particularly in the workplace. And he wanted to know, did she have a weapon?
Oh, I like it.
So I had to coach him, and I'm summarizing a lot here, but I had to coach him through all of that. That's the game. You got to shine a spotlight on the issue as opposed to letting the issue point a finger at you. And now everybody's looking at you. You got to remind them, no, that's the problem, and you guys are complicit with this. So all of that, he practiced it. He didn't do so well in the beginning because he was uncomfortable with it. He did think it was a game. I said I think it's a game too, but that's the game that has been presented to us.
And it's the game he
Oh,
said he wanted to play. He said
he
he wanted to
did.
play it. So.
He did. But ultimately, within a few weeks, within a month, actually, he came back with a new swagger.
Oh.
He came back confident. He came in, telling me, how well he did, and so she started taking days off and everything, and he believes that HR had to get involved, and he had the bulk of the team back on his side, where people were eventually saying, yeah, I see what you were saying about Karen. It was just stuck in that for so long that they thought it was okay, because he kept asking them over and over again when her antics showed up, how do you convince yourself that this is okay? Show me what you do. That's what he did. What do you tell yourself? Because I'm not used to somebody doing that to me. But what do you do? Because I don't want to cause a disruption. So eventually, he learned how to play that game. He played it well too.
I like it. Well, it sounds like you taught him the game and you're teaching me the game because, I'm like, you going to call me an angry black woman, so I'm going to give you what
They
you want.
will. Yes,
Give me
that's
what you want.
yeah. But what did you get out of that though? We discussed that. Because he wanted to curse her out. But what did you get out of that? You don't deserve having your reputation ruined.
This is
You
true.
you you don't, and he worked very hard, just like you've worked hard, and all of our listeners too, to get to where they are. To let somebody come in and sabotage, because we're going to do what we do. Because I wouldn't blame them. But there's another way to attack a demon, and we have to be savvy about those things, and we have to be aware of it. Thinking that we can be civil and take a responsible route, we can try it, and sometimes it works. But there are times that it does not.
I agree. Now,
Yeah.
one thing I have noticed during the pandemic, and it might have something to kind of do with Karens and other people in the workplace who make you uncomfortable, is that a lot of people are like, I'm not going to deal with that. I'm going to
Yep.
jump off and start my own business. So another thing we've seen over the last few years is a bunch of people starting their own businesses. We especially have seen it with counselors. A lot of private practices popping up, a lot of people
Yeah.
starting nonprofits. Now, some of them have the issue with the follow through. You file the paperwork and then you don't
At least they're making some
realize
steps. You're talking about the
realize it's that
Great
much work.
Resignation.
Right, right. Why don't you tell us about the Great Resignation? Because I've heard that term just recently. I didn't know that that's what it was called. Why don't you explain for our viewers what's the Great Resignation?
Sure, absolutely. So the Great Resignation is a phenomenon that happened during the pandemic where a lot of people took time out to think about their jobs. We spend a lot of time on our jobs. Sometimes we spend more time on a job than we do at home with our loved ones. And they concluded that the job wasn't really meeting their emotional needs or their social needs or their financial needs, or it was causing too many problems. So they just decided to quit. They decided to do something different. Some of them didn't have a safety net Some of them did not have a job to go to, but they decided to leave that particular field. I know I did that myself. I had a job to
Yeah.
go to, a job that I had for 18 years, and it was just time to move on. It was just time to do something different. So I was a little bit more aggressive with my job search, and eventually back in August, got a new job that I'm very happy with, doing something that I'm passionate about. So I get it. I understand it. Why stay on the job, when they're trying to make you do more these days than you have before, even when you're working remotely?
Well, and then working remotely is like a productivity competition. Like, I know before you only taught two classes, but since you're home all day, you should be able to teach four. And one of the companies I did contract work through doing supervision, the counselors told me that they told them, since they were in the field going into people's homes, they should be able to see twice as many people as they did when they were going into homes
Yeah,
because they're not having to drive. So
yeah,
take out
yeah.
all that driving time and log into your computer and see more people.
Yeah,
It
one
was
of my
ridiculous.
clients, she was a teacher. And I'm telling you, the teachers, the K through 12 teachers in public
Mm,
schools, they've been through a lot. And the nurses. I feel for all of them, but the teachers, new equipment, a new way to teach. They didn't know how to operate it. They're scared for their own health, because the kids come in already full of germs and stuff like
and
that.
won't
So
keep their masks up.
yeah, because they don't like it. And so I have a client, a teacher. She just quit, and she got her real estate license
Mm,
during the time, and
it's a
she
great time to
appeared.
be a realtor too.
She chose a great field to go into, but it's all about self satisfaction. It's all about making sure you're doing what you want to do. Why stay on the same job for years and decades when you're truly unhappy with it? I
Yeah.
believe the pandemic proved to us you can do something different, because there are a lot of people out there still out of a job and they appear to be doing well.
Okay. Well, and the extra unemployment money is gone, but a lot of people got into crafting. I mean,
Yes, I know someone did
I
that.
know, they're selling out of the Cricut machines. I'm gonna have to get me one instead of paying everybody to personalize everything for me. But with gluing gems on stuff. What else? It's a lot of things that we're seeing. Well, we know the therapists are doing the private practice, doing coaching. Now that's the thing I don't like. Everybody thinks they're a life coach now. You think you
Yeah,
got experience because you've been sitting in the house for 2 years.
yeah,
But
yeah.
people are tapping into things that they like to do anyway. So they're trying to figure out how to make money off of it now, which is okay.
So, so now that we're close to the end of today's show, Aisha, what are some tips, suggestions you would have for some of the people who, as one of the viewers said, they're still going through it?
Hmm.
It's still tough on a lot of people. One of my colleagues on my new job, we just got an email. She just lost her father, her
Mm-hmm.
aunt, and her godmother
Oh
over
Lord.
the last month. So people are still dealing with illnesses and deaths, and then other people still dealing with employment issues, and a lot of people are still rattled by the violence and unhappy with the political situation that we in. It's like a perfect storm.
Yeah.
What type of tips would you have?
My number one tip, and I mean, I literally say this to my parents, is turn the news off sometimes.
Absolutely.
Some people, it's like people over a certain age are always checking the obituaries and watching the news, and then wondering why you're depressed
Yep.
because the news is depressing. CNN literally runs the same stories over and over again. You only
Yep.
need to watch it one time.
Yep.
Once you see that same story twice, that means your time on CNN is done. Number two is don't give up on working now. I'm talking to myself right now. Don't get bored with it. Just find you a different kind of workout to do.
Yeah, because sitting around at the house all day, I think you work remote, that could take a toll on your body as well, and staying in one place at one time. So I like that idea. So, like you mentioned, disconnecting from the news. I stopped watching news as much as I used to on January the 6th,
Hmm.
2021. That was the day of the riots, the insurrection, the
Yeah.
attempted coup d'etat at the U.S. Capitol. I remember I just had a hard time digesting what I was seeing, and then later on that day, how some of the broadcasters were describing what was going on, and they were really minimizing it. Since that day, I have strictly minimized the news that I read. I just need to know there's somebody in my neighborhood with a gun. That's all I need to know. Is there some danger in my neighborhood, or find out where areas of Atlanta are a little bit more dangerous than others? That's all I need to know.
Yeah.
Also, what I would add to what Dr. Aisha presented to you guys, practice some meditation.
Yeah.
Practice some peaceful alone time doing what you enjoy. That can be wonderful. I know it's tough on some people. It's difficult for them to think about it, and it's a little bit challenging when they try it in the very beginning, but that's a great way to disconnect from some of the things that are going on in our world, and it will help you to reflect and to make some decisions on your own on how you want to handle some things. Perhaps tackle some of those issues that you really do need to tackle, because it's beginning to get on your last nerves. That would be the tip that I have for you guys.
And you know what? It's interesting you say meditation because I just started doing that this past. I've learned to just use all my kids' toys, and my youngest has this Oculus VR thing,
Yep,
and it's got this meditation. It's like I'm in a whole other place. And
yep,
even
yep.
Tiffany Haddish is doing one. Figure out what's already around you that you can use. And
Even if
again,
you go, for me, I'm sorry, but
no, go ahead.
even for me, it's simple. I just go in the backyard in my stadium chair, put on some headphones with my favorite playlist, and I can go somewhere peaceful for about 20, 25 minutes.
I love
So
it.
do whatever works. So we're at the end of today's show, talking about dealing with the pandemic and everything else. This is a great topic. Do you think we should continue with that topic in the future, Aisha?
Maybe, but what I would like is for you all who are watching and listening to us to maybe comment or send us a message telling us what you like to hear us talk about. We want to know what you're interested in. And we're happy to bring
Absolutely.
on, if we don't know the answers, we're happy or would love to bring on someone who could give you the answers.
Yeah, we can help you figure some things out. We can certainly do that. So you can find us on Facebook, Two Therapists and a Microphone. You can find us on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter.
Twitter.
And we also have a webpage, twotherapist.com. That's TWO therapist with an S.com. Check us out anytime. Send us a message. In the future, I'm trying to set up so that you guys can actually call in and we can talk to you. I hope to have that ready in about a month or so we can answer all your questions that you guys have for us. I see, yeah, someone enjoyed the show. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
watching, sis. That's my sister. So, thank you guys for joining us. We had a wonderful time. Any parting words, Dr. Aisha?
No, it's just it's great to connect with you again, Harrison, to be back on here on our platforms and doing this podcast. I think when we started doing it, podcasts weren't that popular. Not everybody and their
Yep.
mama has one, but I'm
And their
hoping
kids.
that we are so excited about connecting with you all again.
All right, guys. So we're going to see you every Thursday night at 7:30. See you next week.